What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, because World War III is a really bad idea. Here is your host, Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. It is Tuesday, December 3rd, 2019. And apologies for the sudden vacancy, if you will. Yesterday, I had a doctor's appointment I needed to get to, and it was right on top of the show. So anyway, everything's fine. You know, they were just checking me out and all that stuff. Now, Kamala Harris has dropped out of the campaign, so that's one less, and we're going to start seeing more and more of them, I think, drop out here. And before we get into it, though, I have a little bit of a gripe, and that is that the remote on our TV died, and we called the company, and they said, well, go on down here and we'll get you a new remote. And it wound up being this huge, long drive, because the GPS on my iPhone took us in the wrong direction. And it was very, very frustrating. And when we got there, it turned out the office had closed. So we're going to have to go and deal with that tomorrow. All righty, so let's get into the news today. And I can't say I'm very surprised about this, but apparently Inspector General Horowitz is ready to exonerate the Russiagate plotters. And Horowitz has stalled for around 15 months, and now it looks like he's going to release some chicken feed to the public by giving the Russiagate conspirators a stern talking to while exonerating them of all criminal wrongdoing. Now, I could have told you the deep state would never turn on their own. Attorney General William Barr, the fixer for Poppy Bush, co-conspirator in the Iran-Contra and the Mena, Arkansas drug-running operations, could never prosecute the deep state criminals without potentially exposing themselves to his own misconducts. The fix is in. And the question is, has Trump been in on the scam from the beginning? And if the answer is yes, millions of innocent patriots are going to be at stake. So, like I said, not too surprised. That's the latest word coming on down here. Now, Lisa Page broke her silence on the eve of the Department of Justice IG report and portrays herself as the victim of President Trump. Victim, I'm a victim, I'm a victim. She said that Trump's tweets were like getting a shot to the stomach here. But Lisa Page is not a victim. Her actions damaged the FBI and our nation. So we'll see what's going on. Now, interestingly enough, Adam Schiff is giving the committee members just 24 hours to review the impeachment report before voting. And supposedly that would be today. They have to digest it before voting. And Hillary Clinton still refuses to rule out running for president, even though she's missed the filing deadline for the New Hampshire primary. See what's going to happen there. All right. Ukrainian President Zelensky once again says there was no quid pro quo. That he's told reporters in a recent interview there was no quid pro quo for U.S. aid to Ukraine. Now, according to Trump, the reason the funding was held up was that other nations who had volunteered to come on in and help with the funding for Ukraine didn't show up. And we know now that, in point of fact, the funding for Ukraine happened, was yanked before phone call on the 25th. All righty. President Trump is threatening to go to the Supreme Court to stop the unconstitutional Democrat impeachment proceeding, and he might just win. See what happens there. The Trump White House slams the Democrats won't participate in the highly partisan judiciary impeachment hearing on Wednesday. And he's right. It would be, it's highly biased. They're going to try and find something that they can use to impeach him. Okay, we're going to do a shout out now to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining our network. Meanwhile, GOP Governor Brian Kemp has appointed GOP megadonor Kelly Loeffler to the Senate. And apparently President Trump wanted Kemp to appoint pro-life conservative Georgia Representative Doug Collins. A lot of appointing going on out there. What can I tell you here? Now, the House minority has released a 110-page report refuting every accusation by Democrats and the failure of all 12 witnesses to find presidential misconduct. And this was despite a committee where chairmanship was judge, jury, and refused Republicans their witnesses and their cross-examination. And that was pretty tacky. Schiff said, no Republican witnesses, no Republican cross-examination. Okay. Apparently, more than 300 ads by Trump campaign have been taken down by Google and YouTube. They're just out to get him. They're out to get him. And apparently, Biden's staffer failed to fire up a small crowd at one of Grandpa Joe's campaign stops in Iowa on Monday. And Joe Biden is currently on an 8-day tour as he desperately tries to whip up excitement for his failing 2020 bid. And possibly part of the problem is Biden just came out with this weird statement, I love kids jumping on my lap. And he was talking about leg hair and roaches. And apparently this post went viral and creeped a lot of people out. And Joe Biden just sort of has this creepy reputation of grabbing young girls and so forth. And meanwhile, Hunter Biden has blown off a court hearing over child support. His lawyer has abruptly quit. Now, Hunter had a child with 28-year-old London Roberts after meeting her at a D.C. strip joint where she worked as a stripper, and she's not being compliant. She's demanding a hefty child support payment. And Hunter Biden, the adventures in that strip club, apparently it involved drugs and sex toys. So, okay, here's a good one. Jeffrey Epstein's private banker at Deutsche and Citi found swinging from a rope. Now, they're calling it a suicide. But this is another mysterious Epstein-linked death. And it comes shortly after the FBI was seeking to interview this bank executive about loans he approved for Epstein and the indicted child traffickers' labyrinth of U.S. business and offshore companies. So, suicide, my astrolabe, what can I tell you? Over at the BBC, they've received a record 24,000 complaints in the past fortnight over alleged bias when reporting on the election campaign. After all, BBC is the network that reported on the collapse of World Trade Center Building 7, 26 minutes before it actually happened. Israel is appealing for a worldwide hackathon to free Iran. And they're basically saying, grab some Red Bull and code. And Israel's Defense Minister Naftali Bennett introduced during a social media message on Iran published Saturday. He explains that Iran blocked internet access after mass anti-government and economic grievance-driven protests spread to some 100 cities over the past week. So many social sites in Iran are still banned as we speak, he notes. And so he basically wants a hackathon to save Iran from itself. Alrighty, let's see. Angela Merkel, meanwhile, has gone full liberal authoritarian, demands restrictions on free speech. And again, it's just like, yeah, it's like the Nazis. Okay. Now, there's an interesting little article here, and it comes from Zero Hedge. Welcome to the Potemkin village of Washington Power. And they're talking about this op-ed piece in the New York Times by retired Admiral William McRaven, in which he brashly warned that unless Trump jumped aboard the forever war bandwagon, he must be removed, and sooner the better. The U.S. must have a policy, McRaven said, that protects the Kurds, the Iraqis, the Afghans, the Syrians, the Rohingyas, the South Sudanese, and the millions of people under the boot of tyranny. Well, we've heard that one before. And it's always an excuse for war. It really is. Now, ABC News is reporting that U.S. bribes to protect convoys are funding the Taliban insurgents. Payments are as high as $15,000 per truck, up to 300 trucks per convoy. And the Taliban control over Afghanistan increased 15% between 2015 and 2018, according to SIGAR. Now, here's another good one. This is from Sputnik News. The Pentagon is pretending to fight Daesh, ISIS, in a new op to justify U.S. continued Syria occupation. The United States wants to stay in Syria, and to do it, they're pretending to fight ISIS. So, anyway, the Syrian army has bombed Kurdish tankers smuggling oil to Turkey, which is a message to Trump. Oil tankers and oil makeshift refineries in the northeast of Syria were bombed by mysterious planes yesterday morning. Sana later stated it was done by the Syrian Army Regional Command. And the statement conveyed Syrian Arab news agency Sana was brief but meaningful. Sana's correspondent in Al-Hasaka quoted a field source as saying, verifying that some Kurdish organizations in the Syrian Jazeera region smuggle Syrian oil through tanks through Jarablus and the Erbil region in northern Iraq to the Turkish regime, which they claim to be their main enemy. And groups of these tanks and oil refineries were destroyed this morning. Now, the source stressed that strict measures will be taken against any smuggling of stolen oil from Syrian territory outside Syria. Now, Syrian Jazeera region refers to the Syrian territories east and northeast of the Euphrates. Everybody's bombing everybody here. Down in the Democratic Republic of Congo, heavy gunfire has erupted in response to the anti-United Nations protests. And basically, the protesters are demanding that the UN withdraw from the city again, and they march toward the UN headquarters. Security forces blocked hundreds of demonstrators attempting to get close to the UN compound, housed inside the airport near Beni, one of 2 UN bases in the area. This is from Al Jazeera. And it says, we still have heavy gunfire here. Local sources are confirming the death of 2 people, including a young boy and a woman. And they're saying the Syrian people, I'm sorry, the Congolese people are saying they don't feel safe and the UN has to leave. And they say they will not stop protesting until the UN leaves the area. So anger erupted last week over the perceived failure of UN peacekeepers to protect civilians from deadly rebel attacks, with several mass demonstrations targeting the UN facilities in the northeastern DRC. Alrighty, the war against Syria. So why is the truth not known and accepted by broad-based Western populations? And renowned author Michael Collin demonstrates the characteristics of war propaganda that deny us the right to know. First, the real interests that push for war must be hidden. Privileged access to and control of resources, including oil pipelines, must not be mentioned. Second, history has to be erased. People mustn't be aware of the long-standing imperial efforts to divide, weaken, and colonize Syria. They must not know that the war in Syria was planned well in advance by imperial powers. Third, the leader of the country must be demonized. Well, we've seen how that happens, about how Assad gassed his own people. And people must never know that elected President Assad has always been popular, even according to a NATO poll, and that the invading terrorists were never accepted nor welcomed by the vast majority of Syrians. And here we go. The U.S. is priming NATO to confront Russia and China. And the December 3rd and 4th summit of the North Atlantic Treaty Council in London resembles a family reunion after the acrimony over the issue of military spending by America's European allies. The trend is up for defense spending across the European allies and Canada. Over $100 billion with a B is expected to be added to the member states' defense budgets by the end of 2020. More importantly, the trend at the NATO foreign ministers meeting in Brussels is the run-up to the London summit, showing that despite growing differences within the alliance, member states closed ranks around the 3 priority items in the U.S. global agenda: escalation of the aggressive policy towards Russia, militarization of space, and counting China's rise. NATO will follow Washington's lead to establish a space command by officially regarding space as a new operational domain. Well, as I've mentioned before, that's a problem. And I think that's illustrated by these satellites that have been put up there to present high-speed internet to the whole world. And they're very bright, very reflective. They're interfering with astronomers. Got to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back. Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. And as we were mentioning just before the commercial break, the U.S. is basically pushing on NATO to confront Russia and China. And NATO has declared space an operational ground, which I think is it's going to wind up with a ton of shrapnel. And again, there's this these satellites that were put up there to provide high-speed internet all over the globe. And already astronomers are complaining because they're so bright and reflective. Now, Gorbachev is warning of a hot war between the U.S. and Russia. And he warned in a new interview that tensions between the U.S. and Russia could lead to a hot war between the two nations. That means we're talking nuclear bombs. Asked whether the tensions threaten to lead to a new era akin to the Cold War, Gorbachev told CNN, "I think this should be avoided." And it's good that already all over the world there is a conversation and people are talking, people are reacting, and this is the most important thing. Speakers and politicians, people understand that this new Cold War must not be allowed because it could turn out to be a hot war that would mean the destruction of our entire civilization. Well, he's got that one correct. Meanwhile, Macron is out there urging an end to NATO's Cold War with Russia. So it looks like everybody's saying this is a bad idea. Okay, the Russian Defense Ministry is denying allegations of an airstrike on a refugee camp in Syria. According to the Russian top brass, the evidence is fake. Rumors about a Russian air raid on a refugee camp in Syria last August have nothing to do with reality, according to Russian Defense Ministry spokesman Igor Konashenkov. And to the regret of those who ordered this fake, we have to reiterate that the coordinates of targets and reports of the accomplished missions are never radioed verbally and openly. Said absurd accusations by the fake's authors are based on a video footage of unknown origin showing white helmet swindlers rushing about in front of the camp's buildings, images of blue skies where a Russian plane was allegedly seen, and fragments of phrases spoken in Russian and attributed to Russian air pilots. Okay. Over in India, they have just test-fired a nuclear-capable missile, and basically following a major row over controversial comments from a senior Indian diplomat who in a recent televised speech called for the adoption of the Israeli model in Indian-administered Kashmir. And New Delhi has added fresh fuel to the fire with another successful test launch of an intermediate-range ballistic missile, the Agni-3, on Saturday. And this comes after a series prior short-range nuclear-capable tests over the past couple of weeks. So it was the first night trial of the nuclear-capable Agni-3 surface-to-surface ballistic missile fired from an island off of India's east coast into the Bengal Sea. Indian defense sources have touted that the nuclear-capable ballistic missile possesses a range of over 1,862 miles and has successfully hit its targets in the latest tests. So what the Indian diplomat stated in a private gathering gone viral was that Israeli-like apartheid should become the rule of law in Kashmir, where Muslim Kashmiris would only be granted what would be tantamount to second or third class citizenship. And of course, it's quite obvious the person uttering those words has never been to Gaza, East Jerusalem, or the West Bank. By the way, the West Bank is now without electricity due to economic hardship. And again, everybody's playing with these nuclear missiles. It's entirely possible we could see a nuclear war here. Okay, over in Iraq, parties hold talks on a new prime minister as protests continue. Talks began in the lead up to Abdul Mahdi's resignation. And apparently his resignation did not take anyone by surprise, least of all Parliament. Officials say that talks on his replacement had already begun days before he resigned and are now actively going on in earnest, which isn't to say that finding a new premier is going to be easy. Agreeing on Abdul Mahdi as a compromise candidate took a while, and there were even more obstacles in the way of anyone being a long-term success now. We have to take a break for commercials. Join us on the air, 800-313-9443. Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. So we're talking about the situation in Iraq, and we're talking about how Prime Minister Abdul Mahdi resigned, and now the search is on for a new prime minister. But it's going to be very, very difficult because the protesters are demanding an end to foreign influence, and it's pretty obvious at this point the United States does not want to leave. So the large protests continue to rage, demanding wholesale reforms. And the Shiite coalition that controls Iraq's parliament will need to satisfy them with an appointment, but also satisfy the U.S. and Iran, two nations that traditionally hold massive sway on Iraq politics. Okay, now then. Mike Pompeo is out there foaming at the mouth, saying that Iran is the common villain in all the Mideast protests. It's all Iran's fault. And it's basically, it's fair to say that Iran is involved in the Iran protests, if not the way Pompeo presents it, and tangentially involved in Iraq opposing the protesters. Pompeo's attempt to tie Iran to the Lebanon protest is plainly untrue. Now, Lebanon's protest of the past month has seen protesters faulting the government for its inability to handle economic struggles, and chiefly the government's inability to reliably provide electricity across the country, something they're dealing with over on the West Bank. And Pompeo said the Lebanese protesters want Hezbollah and Iran out of their country, which is simply not true. The only politician that suffered from the protest movement was Prime Minister Hariri, a longtime political rival of Hezbollah. In all three countries, the protests have been non-sectarian in nature, and despite Pompeo's claim to the contrary, none of them have presented their protests are at all about removing the Ayatollahs from power. Okay, Iran in the crosshairs. Why some EU states opt to distance themselves from the U.S. op in the Strait of Hormuz. And apparently U.S. allies are declining the invitation to join the U.S.-led naval coalition, and are choosing to distance themselves from the superpower because they don't want to be dragged into a military confrontation between Washington and Tehran. Some, such as Germany, prefer diplomacy, while others, such as Japan, want to preserve economic and political relations with Iran. In France's case, they still hold out hope for saving the JCPOA, the P5+1, says Sarah Abed, an independent journalist and analyst. So the Trump administration unilaterally withdrew from the Iran nuclear deal a year ago, leaving Europe's major states, the signatories to the accord, struggling with the consequences of Washington's move. So, alrighty. According to Press TV reports of 24th November 2019, Iran and China are working on a trade or barter deal that would circumvent U.S. sanctions. It would bypass U.S. dollar-denominated transactions, exchanging Iranian oil for Chinese goods and services and investments. The head of the Tehran Chamber of Commerce, Industries, Mines, and Agriculture, Masoud Kansari, told Tehran's Tasnim news agency that the mechanism coming to increase economic exchange between Iran and China is in the process of being finalized and implemented. He meant, indeed, a barter deal between the two countries, avoiding a monetary exchange is being worked out. Basically, they're going to bypass SWIFT. Now, on Friday, 6 European countries used a bombshell joint statement declaring their intent to join INSTEX, or the Instrument in Support of Trade Exchanges, a European special purpose vehicle serving as an alternative to SWIFT in order to bypass the sanctions on Iran. Finland, Belgium, Denmark, Netherlands, Norway, and Sweden released a joint statement asserting it's of the utmost importance to the preservation and full implementation of the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action on Iran's nuclear program by all parties involved. And in light of the continuous economic support for the agreement from Europe and the ongoing efforts to implement the economic part of it and facilitate legitimate trade between Europe and Iran, we're now in the process of becoming shareholders of the instruments in support of trade exchanges subject to completion of national procedures. All right, we're going to grab ourselves a phone call. David in Iceland, aloha, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, thank you, Mike. Because your show is named "What Really Happened," has anyone come to the conclusion what really happened to JFK?
Yeah, I mean, basically, if you look at the there was an official congressional inquiry into the assassinations, and they concluded that there had, in fact, what?
Was it in 1977?
Yeah, and they came to the conclusion that there had, in fact, been multiple shooters attacking John Kennedy.
Yeah. Did you know that Jim Mars? Did you know Jim Mars?
Yes.
Yeah. He did an interview with James Files. Have you heard of him?
No.
He said that he was the shooter, and he described it in the most detailed, description I've never ever heard. And
well, there were at least 3 shooters. There was one in the school repository.
Yeah.
There was one in the Daltex building, and one at the grassy knoll.
Yeah, he described them. He described them. Who was on his team.
Yes.
But he didn't know of the others. Yeah. So there were at least 1 or 2 teams. And there was also calls to, call it off.
Well, what happens is when they're getting ready to do something like that, it's put on hold until somebody gives the order to proceed.
Yeah, they said, he said, it's going down anyway. His boss, he said it. And,
okay.
And you can find it. I found it at least 10 years ago. I think he's still alive. And Jim Mars made an, hour-long interview with him. And
yes.
I'm not sure why it's not more talked about, because he describes it in such, details.
Well, if you go to the top of my website, that little gray box, you'll find not only John F. Kennedy's assassination, but Robert Kennedy's assassination, and a bunch of other stuff there as well.
Yeah, there was a second shooter at RFK too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Shot him from behind.
Okay. Yeah, that's correct. And I'm not sure why it's not more talked about, because people really, would like to know what really happened.
Well, probably because it happened so long ago, and people are willing to, after a while, the memory fades. And we have more recent things to talk about, like TWA 800 or 9/11. I mean, it was a long time ago.
building 7 is, screaming,
Yes.
There was no airplane that hit the building, so that's screaming out loud. Okay,
Well,
I'm just wondering, if some of your other listeners, have looked into this, maybe someone who knows this in better detail than I have. So, or maybe you looked into it. Maybe it's like a sandbox or something.
well, like I said, if you go up to the top of my main page, you'll find a story about JFK.
Okay.
Okay.
I've looked. Thank you. And maybe some of your other listeners or callers, maybe they know something. Okay,
It's
thank you.
entirely possible.
Probably. Okay, bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye. We're going to switch over to Joe in Tennessee.
Bye-bye.
Aloha, Joe. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, that last caller, he brought up some interesting things, but this anniversary of Kennedy's assassination, it went by without hardly anybody saying a word. I've never seen it so quiet on the mainstream media front. Normally they have a little bit of a recognition of it, but this year they didn't. It was not a peep. And I think it gets back to, I think part of it is this: there is a war against the deep state now, and as of now, Trump seems to be the champion, and he's a very powerful champion in that he's the president, like Kennedy. And I think that might be part of the reason why the Kennedy assassination thing is kind of a taboo. It's something I'm sure the executives at the media companies, they're just told right now not to leave it alone. Don't even mention the Kennedy assassination, because at this time, with what's going on, the exposure of the FBI and the CIA plotting against the president, Trump, not to assassinate him, or maybe we didn't know about that yet, but at least to take him down, right, with the insurance policy and the manufactured Russia collusion investigation. And you're seeing it now with the Democrats trying to impeach him. So, that's you're not going to see anything that brings up because the Kennedy assassination shows how long these deep state bastards have been in power in this country and what they are capable of doing. So as far as I'm concerned, the whole Kennedy assassination, it's like 9/11. It's like Waco, Vince Foster, that Flight 800. Everybody that really looks into it knows what's going on, and the information's out there for you. But don't ever expect the mainstream media to broadcast the truth of these events. It'll probably never happen unless there's a complete overturning of the establishment, which is what I'm hoping for. But I'm realistic in that I doubt I'll see it. But you never know. Yeah. And that's why I to this day I still support Trump in his crusade against the deep state. And until I see him make peace with them and them not attacking him, then I'll know that he's gone. He's still good, and their hatred for him tells me that he's doing the right thing. Now, Barr might be another question. Like you say, this Pfizer report, this report coming out with Horowitz. We'll see. But my whole thing is, if they roll over for this, it's just going to show what they are, how corrupt the system is. And in a way, that's a good thing, too. So to me, it's a win-win situation. I win if they expose them and these guys get handcuffed and frog-marched. I win if they don't, and everybody can say, hey, look how corrupt the system is, because the system needs a thorough cleaning out, and it hasn't happened yet. But about Kavanaugh, I'm really, enjoying to see Kamala Harris withdraw from her candidacy, and she can go back to Willie Brown, because that's what she is a whore. That's how she got her start. These women, they like to pretend like they're feminists. In particular, her. I shouldn't say these women, but her. She likes to go around and talk about women. But you know how she got her start in politics, right? Was by having sex with Willie Brown. That's how she removed, so she'll sit there and talk about Kavanaugh, and you'll see her up there running Kavanaugh down, and she just used her booty to move on up the ladder, which is really kind of a rotten thing, what a whore does, you know. So let's just call her what she is. She's an admitted whore, and I'm glad to see her leaving. Now, the reason she's leaving is because Tulsi Gabbard destroyed her in that debate. Now, that debate, that was right after she had all kinds of momentum. She just like made Biden look like a fool in the previous debate. Everybody was throwing money at her. She was being feted by all the media, and Tulsi just took out a scalpel and just tore her up. And it's interesting to me that she's going out and they're still ignoring Tulsi because, you know, she tore Kamala up. Where did all the support and the people that she tore Kamala up with go? I'm sure they're pulling the Ron Paul on Tulsi with her, you know, with her numbers. You know, there's no doubt in my mind that she's got they're doing the fake polls, and the establishment, the Hillary wing of the party, calling her a Russian agent. They just hate her like the Democratic, the rhinos hated Ron Paul. So I'll give this to Tulsi Gabbard. Thank you for destroying this whore, and I wish you the well, because of all the Democrats, she's probably the only one I could really accept to see as the president of the United States to beat Trump. Now, Biden, what a clown. And I saw a story today, like the Trump campaign was saying this about Biden. If I was the Trump campaign, I wouldn't say a word about Biden. I'd want Biden to win. I mean, he's mentally unstable. He suffers from dementia. He's definitely, I don't think the Democrats, they might be holding the seat for Hillary by having him there, and then he'll withdraw because the thing about Biden is he missed his chance. You know, he should have ran in 2016 and he probably would have won. You know, but you got to, now he's too old, and he would have been the vice president. He should have really been the nominee because the vice president, of a party in power usually, runs for president.
Biden right now is dealing with, the Ukraine corruption, and, his son dealing with. Anyway, listen, Joe, we got to take a break for commercials. Okay. Hang on to the line. We're going to come right back to you after these words from our sponsors. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. We're talking with Joe in Tennessee. And Joe, I don't know that Biden would have done all that well in 2016 because at some point that Ukrainian corruption deal would have surfaced. And it certainly has surfaced now.
Yeah, but I think he's quite a bit more liked than Hillary, without a doubt. And he would have done better in those Rust Belt states, Wisconsin and Michigan with labor. Labor likes Biden. So, he has ability, even though he's phony, he does have the ability to talk a little bit of a populist line. And he does have I think that he would have won the states that Hillary won, and he would have picked up Pennsylvania, not Ohio, but Wisconsin and Michigan. So he probably would have won. But it's one of those things, you got to be a man for your time. And, same way with Bernie. Bernie's not going to have his chance was, 2016 also, but Hillary cheated him. So he didn't get his chance. Trump is the man for his time, and he's grabbing the bull by the horns and he's running with it. And I got to tell you, he's playing for all the marbles. And if he gets reelected, and because of this impeachment, he gets a Republican House, a Republican Senate, he'll probably get 2 or 3 more Supreme Court nominations, and he really could change the character of this country for the next 50 years. I mean, we'll get our wall, right? Which is being built, but he'll have a Republican House that'll be Trumpians, not rhinos. He'll have a Republican Senate, and by then he'll be up to 300 federal judges. So you won't have all these judges jumping in and stopping everything he does all the time. So he really is playing for the marbles, and I give him credit for his moxie. And I think he likes this impeachment thing because the Democrats might not have realized that they just raised the stakes. They're going to go, and they're risking losing the House. If they would have just played nice, they probably could have kept the House and not are giving Trump all this power. If Trump wins re-election and puts a Republican House and a Republican Senate, and he gets 7-2 on the Supreme Court, he'll be like an emperor. I mean, it'll change this country's character, and it's for a good thing, I hope. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know if they realize what a risk they're taking. You know, the establishment with taking this. You know, they must be reading polls or figuring out something that's got them scared. This is a very, you know, this whole impeachment thing tells you how hysterical and scared the Democrats must be.
Well, the reason they're scared is that if Trump, if this impeachment thing falls apart, then there are 30 Democrats who are going to be in serious trouble in the 2020 elections.
Well, yeah, no, and then he gets control of the House, and once again, Ruth Bader Ginsburg's probably going to be dead before the election. So, you know, they're scared about that. I think part of the impeachment is to say we can't allow an impeached president to pick the next Supreme Court judge, can we? You know, that's going to be one of their talking points when Trump nominates that woman. What's her name? I can't think of her name right now, but anyway, I hear the music.
Listen, so. Joe, yeah, thanks an awful lot. We got to let you go now.
Thank you.
And take a break for station identification, and we'll be right back. Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here, hour number 2. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. And getting on back to the war talk, and there seems to be so much of it out there. Right now, a Russian official is saying that Iran will not be alone if the U.S. attacks. And there's nothing new about this. Russia has said all along that if the United States attacks Iran, that they will come on in. Now, Iran, for its part, is engaged in a program of mass production of what are called JASC cruise missiles. And they've got 5 other military projects, including the sea-launched Pelican drone, the Sadov-2 naval mine, the Soran positioning system, the Balaban guided bomb, and the Logman training vessel. And the Iranian Navy has initiated the mass production of the submarine-launched JASC cruise missiles, and saying this domestically developed missile will be fitted into all of Iran's submarines. So that's going to be a bit of a rude awakening for the enemy. Now, Iran is demanding that the United States pay it $130 billion in damages for inciting riots and other crimes against the nation. And Tehran has said the U.S. should offer compensation to ordinary citizens whose lives have been damaged during the violent protests openly backed by Washington. So there we are. Iranians have filed more than 360 lawsuits seeking compensation from the U.S. for the damages caused by the widespread rioting and looting during anti-government protests, as well as for other crimes committed by the U.S. against our nation. So this is coming from Judiciary spokesperson Gholam Hussein Ismaili. And Ismaili accused Washington of inciting and supporting the unrest, stressing that American actions directly hurt ordinary Iranian citizens. And the courts have awarded over $130 billion in damages to be paid by the U.S., and saying Iran must now work towards compelling Washington to pay up. Well, it's not going to happen. And what's really interesting, of course, is you've got all these court decisions out there like 9/11, and everybody is saying, we demand money. French Defense Minister Florence Parly insisted in an op-ed that the country would not allow advanced military AIs to become fully automatic and end up making life and death decisions without human input. And Party came out strongly against the lethal autonomous weapon systems that some call killer robots. And she said France refuses to entrust the decision of life or death to a machine that would act fully autonomously and escape any form of human control, and will not send any such machines into combat. I don't know about that. I mean, if you look at some of what Boston Dynamics is coming up with. Anyway. North Korea warns the U.S. will choose its Christmas gift if Trump fails to meet the looming nuclear deadline. The North Korean Foreign Ministry said on Tuesday that Washington would decide what Christmas gift it would receive if the United States fails to change its hostile policies on denuclearization before the end of the year. Now, North Korea has been ramping up its missile tests and other military demonstrations in recent months in an apparent pressure tactic over the talks. Negotiations have faltered since a February summit between Kim Jong-un and Trump in Vietnam, which broke down after the U.S. rejected North Korean demands for broad sanctions relief in exchange for a partial surrender of its nuclear capabilities. So Kim later issued his end-of-the-year deadline and has also said the North would seek a new path if the U.S. persists with sanctions and pressure. Working-level talks last month in Sweden broke down over what the North Koreans described as the Americans' old stance and attitude. And yeah, that's exactly what's going on here, because the United States has this attitude that they've picked up from the Israelis, which is, you give us what we want first, and then we'll do something nice for you. If you understand anything about the Asian mindset, it doesn't work that way. Okay. Uyghurs come on out with this comment. This entire century has been an unmitigated march in the direction of stupidity. Two paths forward with China, the good and the bad. And basically he's saying he's consistently forecast a significant worsening in U.S.-China relations and remained adamant that all the happy talk of trade deals and breakthroughs is just a load of hot air. And he's absolutely right. He's absolutely right. It's a lot of hot air. All right, we're going to do a shout out now to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining our network. Now, on Monday, Donald Trump extended a national emergency declaration for Nicaragua for a year due to this dismantling and undermining of democratic institutions by the government of Central American country and the alleged repression of activists. So the notice extends for 1 year, the emergency declared on November 27th, 2018. National emergency is intended to broaden the presidential powers to invoke a dozen relevant U.S. laws. How it's not clear how the declaration would apply to Nicaragua. Trump used a similar emergency statement regarding the U.S.-Mexico border to invoke existing laws that, according to the administration, allow the diversion of money from government programs to build a border wall. But why has Trump decided to do this? Nicaragua, a national security threat? Well, what they've got in Nicaragua is lithium. And that's really what it's all about. They want that lithium. In fact, they want all those rare earth minerals. Okay. Alrighty. Maduro is vowing to reinforce sanctions and accuses Venezuela and Cuba of stirring regional strife. Elliot Abrams reiterated support for Guaido and denied that sanctions are damaging the Venezuelan economy. Well, of course sanctions damage the economy. It's the whole point of sanctions. Guaido proclaimed himself head of the state in January and has gone on to lead several unsuccessful attempts to topple Maduro, including a failed military putsch in April. Trump immediately backed Guaido's interim presidency, handing the Venezuelan file to Abrams, a Cold War veteran, infamous for his role in the Iran-Contra scandal and Reagan administration's Central American policy and the Iraq War. Asked about the efficacy of U.S. sanctions, Abrams assured reporters that the measures are cutting off vital funds for the Venezuelan government. However, he acknowledged he would like to see, obviously, the sanctions work better. There are plans to reinforce the effort. He did not offer further details. So, why is it so hard for the media to understand what's going on in Venezuela? Meanwhile, Mexico has declared they will not allow U.S. military operations against the drug cartels. And their foreign minister is warning that drone strikes would violate Mexico's sovereignty. And again, this idea of declaring, this or that group is a bunch of terrorists, Trump hasn't said whether he will send any troops, saying that he doesn't want to say what he's going to do after the designation of the cartels. He refused to rule out the use of drone strikes in a recent interview. What a mess. What a mess. Alrighty, let's talk about economic news here. Apparently, at the end of another long day trying to sign up new clients, accusing the Roman Catholic Church of sexual abuse, lawyer Adam Slater gazes out the window of his high-rise Manhattan office at one of the great symbols of the church, St. Patrick's Cathedral. He goes, I wonder how much that's worth. So they're already thinking about selling stuff. Across the country, attorneys like Slater are scrambling to file a new wave of lawsuits alleging sexual abuse by clergy, thanks to rules enacted in 15 states that extend or suspend the statute of limitations to allow claims stretching back decades. Associated Press reporting found the deluge of suits could surpass anything the nation's clergy sexual abuse crisis has seen before, with potentially more than 5,000 new cases and payouts topping $4 billion. 75% of millennials may never be able to afford a house. And of course, last week we had Black Friday. And they were out there saying Black Friday is dying. And the claim is that Black Friday is undergoing a transformative period where consumers are ditching brick and mortar stores for online shopping. And Reuters noted Friday traffic volumes at stores across the country on Thanksgiving Eve were soft, and it's likely the trend will continue through the weekend. Another report via KeyBank Capital Markets found traffic somewhat muted at the malls, and KeyBank's analyst Edward Yruma attributed the decline to more online sales. Well, maybe not. I think the fact is that people just don't have the money. They just don't have the money to spend on presents. And I know that, companies like Amazon are doing very well, but they only represent a tiny fraction of consumer spending. I don't think it's online sales. I think people are just broke. Okay, you're going to love this one here. California plans forced internment and asset seizure to solve the homeless crisis. And California's growing homeless crisis has made headlines over the past year. Disease is rampant, and state and local governments have failed to do anything to solve the problem. Well, a new state law would allow the state to forcefully conserve people with mental illness, meaning that if you are homeless and determined to be not self-sufficient, the state can detain you and seize and control your finances until you prove yourself to be self-sufficient. Well, I think the whole point of them being homeless is they don't have any self-sufficiency. They don't have any finances. In one town, Reading, they have proposed this in a letter sent to Governor Gavin Newsom demanding state of emergency powers. This would allow them to essentially detain any person who is unhoused and take control of their finances. Now, while California as a whole is a fairly leftist state and Democrats have proposed a state law to conserve the homeless, Reading is in a Republican district. They say that California is the future of the United States. I certainly hope not. All right, we're going to take a phone call now. Tom in Connecticut, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. Are you familiar with the work of this Professor Mark Skidmore about the $21 trillion that's missing?
Yes, I am.
And I would think that that is essentially the third rail of politics these days. I have contacted Jim Himes. I'm in Connecticut. So it's Jim Himes, it's Chris Murphy, it's Blumenthal.
Yes.
And nothing. I mean, especially Blumenthal, who is part of the Senate Arms Commission, and evidently a lot of this has been traced to irregularities in the bookkeeping of the Defense Department. And they just send back these pitifully inadequate responses and point to their, thank you for your concerns, but this is what I've done for our state. No one is addressing this. No, you can't get, even Skidmore, who wants source documents from this stuff, cannot get these documents to further validate what he's talking about. And the manipulation of the bookkeeping system now that Catherine Offen-Fist goes into in great detail, that they have totally taken away any necessity to be truthful in their bookkeeping. They don't have to do it anymore. So no matter who would get into office, who would have something to say, who would think they could change anything, this is an issue. Obviously, somebody's making a ton of money funneling this stuff somewhere.
Yes.
And, so aside from, then lay on top of that the Federal Reserve manipulation of things, who can, slay this dragon, shall we say? And that's why I don't think anyone that offers any ideas as to what they would like to do with this country, what's being done to this country is just ridiculously out of control.
Yes.
And it's just very sad at this point.
I agree.
I'll leave you with that for today.
All right, thank you. And we're going to switch over to Kelly in Austin. Aloha, Kelly. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi there. Well, I heard you talking about Amazon and brick stores, brick and mortar stores. I started shopping on Amazon more and more lately because I can't find what I'm looking for in the stores. For example, I've been trying to get back into amateur radio after many years. I drove all over this miserable city trying to find a simple store that I could buy something as simple as a shortwave radio. And I couldn't find it. I couldn't find any antennas. I couldn't find anything anywhere, not even at Best Buy. Look on Amazon, I can find it there. Another example, I'm a big guy. I'm not a fat guy, I'm a big guy. So I have to shop at big and tall. So can I find a 3X fleece pullover in any of the stores? No. I have to go to Amazon for that, and I have to go to Amazon for other things. So I think one reason is in addition to the convenience that many people find shopping at Amazon, the brick and mortar stores are cutting their own throats because they're not carrying a lot of what people really want. I'd like to see them do that.
You're absolutely right about
that. They're not
that.
stocking their shelves. I'm not gonna waste my time shopping there.
You know, you're absolutely right, and part of the problem has to do with things like the inventory tax, where they stock the shelves with a dozen of the same thing, and there's no selection.
And so you spend your time running around town trying to find the one thing you don't carry, or the array of things that they don't carry. And what do you end up doing? Well, okay, you have to go somewhere for that. You can go to their website, or you can go to Amazon's website. But after having spent my time and wasted my time in their stores, I'll just go back to Amazon. I don't like dealing with Amazon for obvious reasons. But if Amazon gives me access to these things, I will spend the money to get them.
All right. Well, Kelly, thank you very much for the phone call. We're going to let you go. We got to take a break from commercials, and we'll be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We're talking about the economic news. And as it turns out, 63% of all U.S. jobs created since 1990 have been low-wage jobs. So it's hard to look at that and consider that you've got, a booming economy. And by the way, the stock market did not have a good day. Meanwhile, Trump is threatening to rock Brazil and Argentina with renewed tariffs on metals. I don't know. I think it's a bad idea. I mean, it's creating all this hostility. It's driving these countries into the Russian sphere of influence. And apparently the Fed's official balance sheet increases again this week, up almost $300 billion with a B in only 3 months. So let's talk about global warming. And basically, a week from today, they're expecting snow here, or to be more accurate, slush. And there's an article that came out of basically it's a clear signal of climate fraud. And they're basically talking about how state climatologist in Colorado has been fudging the numbers. For the past 130 years, Colorado's official record maximum temperature was 118 degrees on July 18th, 1888. The state climatologist has erased that and replaced it with a 115-degree reading from July 20th of this year. And he said the weather is a clear signal of climate change. Claim is that John Martin Reservoir east of Animas, Colorado, was 115 degrees on July 20th, 2019. The 115-degree reading does not appear credible, because there is a USHCN station at Las Animas which recorded only 107 degrees that day. Now, Las Animas has had 424 days over 105 degrees since 1895, and this year's peak of 107 was fairly average and nowhere near a record. There's no reason to believe the 115-degree reading is legitimate or that the 1888 record should be erased, but climate alarmists know they can only rewrite history with impunity because no one in the press will dare question the climate religion. And they now take perfectly ordinary weather events and turn them into all-time records. Okay, so there's this blizzard-like blast from a deadly storm. It's been raging across the United States since before Thanksgiving. It slammed the Northeast on Monday and is forecast to linger in parts until at least Wednesday. And the storm system has been dubbed Winter Storm Ezekiel by the Weather Channel and will barrel into 30 states through Tuesday. More than a foot has already fallen in Massachusetts, upstate New York, and Vermont. It's expected to linger in New York until just before sunrise on Tuesday, in Boston until early Tuesday afternoon, and in Maine into Wednesday morning. Bad weather has already forced the closure of schools and resulted in canceled flights from the East Coast to West Coast as the entire country reels from days of heavy rain, snowfall, and high winds. And by the way, I'm going to tell you, it is very cold outside right now. Okay. And yet, at the same time, we are getting this story here. This decade is set up to be the hottest ever. The United Nations warns that climate change is outpacing humanity's ability to adapt as greenhouse gas emissions trigger floods, wildfires, and hurricanes. Now, according to NASA data, there is no CO2 climate emergency. It just does not exist. Junk science jumps the shark. UN Secretary General says global warming has claimed 7 million lives. UN General Secretary General Antonio Guterres, the former socialist president of Portugal, kicked off the International Climate Summit that began on Monday and lasts until December 13th. He's out there saying, oh, yes, it's really horrible. It's really horrible. Okay, alarmists want to rebrand climate change, call it global meltdown or climate collapse or scorched earth. Okay, we're going to take a break for commercials, and we'll be right back. Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. We're going to take a phone call now from Mark in North Carolina. Aloha, Mark. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike, what's on my mind is I got my new YouTube channel and all that, and plus I found out the best way to get your word out since they knocked me off of Twitter is on Facebook. You go to groups and you put a message out, you put it on groups, or you want to share your YouTube channel. I put it out on groups now. Yeah. Boy, you should see some of the garbage I'm getting back. Especially when I insult their holy cow there, George Soros. This filthy, this bum is an absolute Nazi collaborator on his own words. I constantly share that, the 60 Minutes piece where he said he was actually proud of what he did. Those are great times for him when he turned in his fellow Jews, stole out of their valuables and all that, and the thief. And how do you think he made his money? The guy is a thief, one of the worst in the world. He's one of the most evil men in this world. And I'm getting all kinds of stuff back. You're an anti-Semite. You're this and that. This George Soros is a great man. It's all false, fake news about, what you say. It's incredible. I just don't understand it, Mike. I really don't. Same thing with Bloomturd. I put a lot of stuff out on Bloomturd. The same thing. Hey, you're an anti-Semite. You just don't like... I'm not anti-anything. I told you, I'm of Hebrew, I guess, I don't know, Jewish, Hebrew, whatever you want to call it, ancestry myself. Yes. But I try to tell the truth, okay? If a Jew is an evil SOB, he's an evil SOB, just like anybody else is an evil SOB. And it seems like, unfortunately, there are a lot of them, okay? And I'm not going to hold back and say, say that Soros is, that there's anything decent about Soros. There isn't. There's nothing decent about Bloomberg, by the way, his net worth went from 20 billion to 52 billion since 2008. So while most of us took a beating since 2008 because of people like him, Many people lost their homes, okay? They lost their whatever money they had in the stock market and whatever else, okay, because of people like him. And yet, he made out like a fat cat. And so did a lot of his fellow Wall Street scum, okay? I'm not going to look away from that. All right? I'm sorry, Mike. I'm just not going to do it. Evil is evil. And it's incredible how these people come out. And then they also call me a Russian bot. The truth is, I like Russia. I think it's a great country. I think it's my second favorite country right after the United States, the U.S. and then Russia. Okay? But I've never been there. I'd love to go there. I'd love to take a trip there. Matter of fact, I need at least 2 or 3 weeks, and I don't know who's going to take care of my dog, especially my big dog. He's kind of hard to handle. You know what I mean? When you try boarding, he's like a big spoiled kid. And I just don't know what I do with them. So, and I couldn't take him with me, you know? So, other than that, I'd love to take a trip there. But I do enough exploring on YouTube and other websites and see what's going on in Russia. Americans who have toured it, you get the pictures and all that. You get, you know, I got YouTube now on my 45-inch screen. So, you know, I see what a beautiful country it is. I see how friendly the people is. Plus, I got a lot of friends on Facebook that are Russian. So, you know, salt of the earth type people, seems to me.
Yes.
So, you know, and I don't know if you ever watching. He's got a YouTube channel. He calls himself a Slavic American. I think his name is Slavic, something like that. Anyway, he calls himself Slavic American, and he comes right out. He says what this all is. This is racism against Russia. You can be. You know, you can say anything. You can say anything you want about Russia. If you say it about Jews, if you say it about blacks, if you say it about women, even if you say it about homosexuals, you say it about anybody else, Asians. I don't care, Mexicans, whatever else. Oh, you're a racist, you're this and that. But you can say anything you want about Russia and Russian people. And I mean, they actually insult the Russian people, including that bum there working for the FBI and his whore girlfriend there, Strozik and his both Lisa Page.
Yes.
They said it. They're writing. They said what they think of Russians, not of the Russian government, but of Russian people. And yet I'm getting all this garbage back. You know, it's interesting. It's interesting when it comes in. I do answer them in kind, but, you know, after a while, it just gets a waste of time. You know what I mean? I don't want to spend all my time on the screen. I got a lot of other things I like to do. I love working out at the gym. I love on hiking. And, you know, there's a lot of other interests I got, but going into politics all the time. But I do like politics. I'm interested in what's going on in the world. I'm interested in what's going on in this country, because this is my country. And I'm seeing it being destroyed from within. And I see the idiots that are letting this happen. And I see it's really these billionaires and these corporate oligarchs are really the ones who really want to destroy it. And I really believe that they want to kill us all if they get the chance. I think they really believe they can turn themselves.
I don't think they want to kill us all. I think they just want to plunder and loot the country. And
they want to. Yeah, they want to do. They want to do that first, but they have this, especially the tech billionaires there. They have this added thing that they're going to, you know, that they won't even need us anymore. They'll have robots doing everything, and they can turn themselves into robots and get rid of the rest of us. I really believe this is, you know, just like, you know, Rainbow Six. I really believe that some of them are thinking like that.
Yes.
Soros, I think, is just a criminal. He's just a scumbag. He just wants to rule and have a lot of influence and destroy countries, destroy people. That's what he wants to do. He uses money as a weapon. But there's others like, you know, these tech giants, like especially Bill Gates or Zuckerberg, or they actually want to. I think that they want to get rid of us. I think that's what their final ambition. That's what they really want to do. There's others too. It's not just Gates and Zuckerberg. Those are the ones that just come up with now because they run big tech companies. Now I use tech. I use it as a weapon against them. I don't spend all my time on my phone or anything. I use it as a weapon against them to spread information, to pass information. And that's what I do. I consider myself, a citizen journalist. We should all be doing that. There's ways you can pass stuff around. And like I said, I found the best way to do that, because if they cut me off of Twitter, is get your own YouTube channel, however long that's going to last. I don't know how long it's going to last. And to use and to go to groups and spread your word around groups. You know what? Some of the most hostile stuff I get out of groups is the Artfield Fans Club of all things. Oh, do I get some hostility coming out of there? You know, incredible. Yeah. Huh? And a lot of these people are Soros and Hillary lovers, and you say anything about their heroes, boy, oh, you're a Nazi, you're a fascist, you're this, you're that, you're an anti-Semite, that's the one I get the most of, the anti-Semite thing, or the fascist. That's the one I get the most. Is this insulting, going after a bum like Soros makes you an anti-Semite? I mean, come on, give me a break. The man himself, he's I don't, you're right to be an atheist. I know you don't believe, you're an atheist too, but, that doesn't, but he's not, but the fact of the matter is, he doesn't identify as a Jew. But why are you an anti-Semite? Especially since he was confirmed by his own words a Nazi collaborator during World War II. Confirmed. Wasn't any BS. And he didn't do it reluctantly. He actually is proud of it. He said it in that 60 Minutes piece. Yes. What do people have to understand on what he's also collaborating with the Ukrainian Nazis, with all these militias in Ukraine, which makes up most of the Ukrainian military. I mean, the guy is just evil. And I bet you he's behind a lot of what's going on in Hong Kong now. I'll bet you he's behind. Yeah, he doesn't play left or right, by the way. He wants disorder. He wants to. That's the classic, by the way. It's the classic Trotskyite. That's what Trotsky is about. A lot of people don't realize the reason Stalin became so paranoid, I believe now, that I've studied this a little bit, is because of Trotsky. He got rid of Trotsky, kicked him out of the country. Finally, he had him killed in 1940. Meanwhile, I think the reason why he purged the military so much, the Red Army, was not because he was worried about people left over from the Tsar. No, it was the Trotsky influence. Because Trotsky actually started a Red Army. And he knew he knew what Trotsky was by then. He knew he was not he wasn't a real communist. He was a globalist. I call him a hybrid of a fascist, a communist, and a anarchist. That's what Trotsky really was. That's what these neocons and neo-libs are today. The George Soros types, they want to just keep on overthrowing other countries. They want continuous revolution, and they just want control. That's all. That's all pretty much I got to say, Mike. I just had to get it off because I'm getting pissed off when I get some of this stuff, coming online at me, I mean, who these people think about. I mean, if they had half a brain, they'd understand who a guy like Soros really is, Well, anyway, I'll get your answer offline. I'll let you go, and I'll get your answer, what you have to say after that, okay?
Well, I mean, people like Soros, they're money junkies. And it doesn't matter how much wealth they've got, they want more. And yes, it's true that he did collaborate with the Nazis, and then he took that money and he used it to game the Bank of England. And that's really where most of his fortune came from.
Right. He's a Rothschild agent, too. That's another thing. I think people work. By the way, I forgot to mention Rothschild. Okay, Rothschild is behind a lot of this stuff, and that family is behind a lot of evil that's been going on for hundreds of years. They are really bad news. They were talking about Trotsky. Trotsky was being supported by a Rothschild agent in Bronx, New York, when he lived there before he went back to Russia and participated in the revolution. Okay, the Rothschilds are bad news. They're deeply involved with Zionism. David Icke, by the way, I got to give Alex Jones credit. He had David Icke on today, and I can't even get the book. I've tried to find it at Barnes and Noble. They act like they never heard of David Icke. I've tried to, and I don't go to Amazon, and I probably wouldn't find it there either. I really want to get his new book triggered, and he actually talked about his book there on Jones. So I know Jones was a little nervous when he was talking to him, but I give Alex Jones credit that he's had to hike on today. He seems to be improving. He had this guy, E. Michael Jones, on last week. He had not Nace Fuentes. What's the guy? Nick Fuentes on already. So I think Jones has started to get the message, and he's starting to come on and say, you know what? I'm not going to let these Zionists intimidate me anymore. I'm taking on the ADL. I'm taking on AIPAC and all these other organizations. I think because he was really coming down the ADL the other day too. I think Jones is finally starting to improve. I wish he'd get back with you. I wish you guys got back together again. You know, first time I ever heard of you was when you were on Alex Jones' show. That was just around the time I was red pilled when I started listening to Jones. You know, he was the one. Yeah. I give him the more credit than anybody else for red pilling me. To be honest with you, I'm glad to see he seems to be coming back to his old self now. So, you know, well, Mike, that's all I got to say, buddy. All right, you have a good. Don't get too cold. I know it's brutal weather now, right? It's even getting cold here in the Carolinas. You know. Yeah. We had a little trace of snow the other day, but nothing like I'm sure you guys got. You know.
Well, we don't have snow yet. We had snow once, but it went away. But they're forecasting snow for more like slush for a week from today. Anyway, thanks a lot for the phone call. We're going to let you go. And as long as we're talking about the cancel culture, I just got an email from Ryan Dawson, and apparently he has been canceled on AdSense, PayPal, Stripe, and he's been banned on Twitter too. So it really is, you know, censorship. It really is censorship. All righty, getting on back to some other things. Apparently, both Mount Rainier and the New Madrid fault zone were both just hit by significant earthquakes. And obviously, that's going to make us very nervous because we live next to the New Madrid fault zone. And of course, Mount Rainier is like this huge, huge volcano. And so there's a lot of concern that we could see a major quake there. And you need to understand, the New Madrid fault zone was the site of the largest earthquake in U.S. history. Now, fortunately, nobody was living near it at the time, but it was so powerful, it actually reversed the flow of the Mississippi River. But obviously, if it were to happen today, the devastation would be pretty significant. All righty, now, the World Health Organization is finally coming clean about the fact that oral polio vaccines, which government officials claim prevent polio infection, are actually spreading polio all throughout Africa. Now, Nigeria, Congo, Central African Republic, and Angola are all reporting new cases of polio caused by the oral polio vaccine, which is causing children to become paralyzed and die in the name of disease prevention. Now, we've had that problem here in the United States, where people were getting paralyzed. And the official story is, well, it's not the polio vaccine, it's acute paralysis, blah, 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 blah. The World Health Organization is now admitting, yeah, I'm afraid so. Absolutely afraid so. All righty. So, let's see. AMD dominates Intel with an 82% market share with a major German retailer. And vulnerability in fully patched Android phones under active attack by bank thieves. And this is a vulnerability in millions of fully patched Android phones being remotely exploited by malware that's designed to drain the bank accounts of infected users. Okay, we got to take another break. We'll be right back after these few words. Hello Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. We're going to take a phone call from Tom in Florida. Aloha, Tom. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, aloha, Michael. Good to have you back. Glad to hear you back. Yeah, Michael, what I wanted to talk about is, first off, you have the, I don't know if you saw the video of Biden talking about these kids in the swimming pool touching his hair on his legs. Have you seen the video of that?
Yeah, that's pretty sick stuff.
I mean, if this guy wants to be president of the United States, he's talking about, and then he's biting his wife's finger on air. Did you see that one?
Yeah.
If Trump were to do that to Melania, can you imagine what the media would be doing right now? How they attack Trump? But this guy Biden bites his wife. You can look at the wife. She's like saying, "What kind of an idiot husband I got?" It was an amazing video of that. I mean, that blew me away. Then he beat up Corn Pop and some black guy Corn Pop. I mean, what this guy Biden's a real kook case here. And this guy's gonna be he's leading in the polls at a Democrat party. It's unbelievable. And by the way, Michael, I got to get back to this subject that Laura Ingalls had on Fox News last night. She was talking about all these New York, New Jerseyans, New York and New Jerseyans moving into Virginia, and they were trying to take over the South. That's exactly what they're doing. All these people in New York and New Jersey are moving to Florida. They're bringing their liberal crap policies with them. And all those lily white crackers out there in California that fled California going to all those other states out west, they're bringing their liberal bullcrap policies with them, Michael. They're literally, this is by design. You got that Kamala Harris imbecile. She dropped out of the race today. That was good to see that. Yeah. I mean, these Democrats are absolutely insane with their liberal, nonsensical policies. But, Michael, I got to ask you. You have a caller that calls in for your show all the time from Sweden. I believe you have a guy calling it for Sweden, correct?
Yes.
Well, I've been watching the History Channel, and tomorrow night they're having the main episodes, the new season of the Vikings. What have those people in Sweden and Norway become? A bunch of pussy-fied chicken livers? Hops? I mean, what is going on here? They showed this History Channel how bad these Vikings were, and now they're like pussy-fied and they're being run by Zionists. I mean, what the hell is going on, Michael? With Sweden and Norway and Iceland and all these countries, are they all England? Are they all nincompoops? You had the guy stabbing the Arab guy stabbing the people on the bridge in England. So the guy beat him up with a horn or something. You saw that? The guy had a bone or something, and he beat the Arab guy up. And I'm saying to myself, here the show on the Vikings give me on tomorrow night, and they showed how the Vikings conquered, Europe basically, Russia included. Spain also. I didn't realize the Vikings actually went into Spain.
Yes.
But now they're being invaded by the Muslim hordes. And what happened to the Viking males? The Nordic males? They become pussified? Sissified? I don't know what you call it. They're having a major 3-hour episode on the Vikings tomorrow night on History Channel.
Yes.
So they got to call Sweden. I'd like to actually know what happened with the government of Sweden as far as they got liberalized.
Okay, Tom.
I'll hold on if you want, Michael. I heard it.
Yeah, I got to put you on hold. Don't hang up. We'll come right back to you. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. Hour number 3. We're talking with Tom in Florida. And the question right now is, what happened to the Nordic males? Were they as good as legend has it? Or in point of fact, were they never as great as they were made out to be? Well,
yeah, that's it, Michael. I mean, what's your opinion? I really don't know. I mean, do they have, are the Zionists in Sweden and Norway or something? I don't know. I really don't know.
Well, there's a show called Expedition Unknown with Josh Gates, and one of the episodes that he did basically involved Viking culture, and it was pretty impressive. But you're absolutely right. It just seems like so much of our culture is starting to fade away because of the influx of other people, if you will.
Well, Michael, I got to say, watching what's going on with the impeachment process here with Trump, I know a lot of your callers are going to call in. I got to tell you, what I'm seeing, and I know you agree with this, 80% of these people that are going after Trump are Jewish. 80%. 70 to 80%, I'll put it that way. Schiff, Nadler, they're all Zionists, every one of them, basically. Okay? They're going after Trump because they want to put a guy like Bloomberg in there, or that imbecile Biden, or the other Buttigieg. Are you kidding me? You want to destroy whatever masculinity is left in this country at all? I mean, what is going on here? Look what they've done to the Nordic countries. Look what they've done to Europe. You got the mayor of England, I believe, is a Muslim, correct, Michael?
Yes.
And they had mucho stabbings over there already. Instead, they don't use guns in England. They use knives or swords or machetes. And I don't understand, but I'm realizing now, like this guy, Pencil Neck Schiff, this guy is so dark state, deep state, whatever you want to call it, swamp or sewer, and the sewer that's coming out of his mouth, this guy, Schiff, it's just unbelievable. And the press in this country is 80%, which is not the majority of the people in this country, but 80% is being controlled by 2% of the population. Something is drastically wrong, and it has to be straightened out immediately. It's like these liberals in New York and New Jersey and all these other New England states. Let's take the 20 million illegals and stick them right up there. I would take, if I was Trump, I'd say every one of you illegals in California, Texas, Arizona, you're going to be shipped up to the New England states where Bernie Sanders at, Schiff, and that other idiot Blumenthal. The one that said he went to Vietnam, that lying creep. That what's his name? What's his first name? Dick Blumenthal. That guy. Yeah. Take all these illegals, 20 million, stick them up in those New England states where we know some people live in New Jersey and New York. Let's stick all these illegals up there and clean up Texas and Arizona and California, and then we'll see who will win the electoral college. That's what Trump should be hitting on right now. You know what? You want these illegals by the 20-some million in here? We're shipping them all into the New England states. Where Pocahontas lives, where Bernie lives, where Biden lives, stick them right in there. Virginia, that's already gone. They've ruined the state of Virginia, Michael. So that was the home of Robert E. Lee. That was Robert E. Lee's country. That's where he's from. I mean, this is all by design. Everything here is by design by the swine. This is a big cabal design. This is all I can say that I've seen with my own eyes. With this guy Schiff, this guy Nadler, and the other nincompoops they got in the Demon Rat Party, going after the president of the United States like this. This is unprecedented, unheard of. It's uncalled for. It's insanity. But, we have callers that are going to call, well, you know what? Trump has done more. Matter of fact, they have Trump on Drudge. I couldn't believe Matt Drudge reported it in Breitbart, that Drudge is more popular than Abraham Lincoln. I don't know if you saw that article. Do you see that, Michael?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, it's on Matt Drudge. Trump is more popular now than Abraham Lincoln, according to what they're saying in Matt Drudge in Newsmax, in the other one. I saw it on Drudge, and it was on Breitbart. So my point is this. Yeah, he's not the greatest president, whatever, per se. But the guy's at least exposed the immigration situation like it's been covered up. A lot of people didn't know how many millions of people are pouring into this country every year. Okay, yeah, Trump, has he done enough? No, he should start arresting. I called a few senators. I said, when are these people going to get arrested? These people are allowing this invasion of our country. They should be going after impeachment. They should be going for people like Pelosi, for Feinstein, all these people in California, Mexifornia. They should be arrested right now and put in concentration until they can have a hearing on these people.
I understand that Pelosi's son Paul is in trouble. I'm not sure what he
today. Right.
Yeah.
Well, he's like another Hunter Biden. They have Hunter Biden there showing something about he killed I think it was a deer or something. And he's laughing about it. I don't know if you saw that video. They have it was a sound video that you hear Hunter Biden laughing after he took down a buck or something, and I don't know if he was allowed to do it or they had that on the news, and I didn't really pay attention because you get so sick of the news, not the nonsense. But one thing I did hear, Michael, and I was going to ask you to iterate on this. You saw the angel mother who finally, after years, got the illegal that killed her son shipped back to Mexico. You saw that story?
I saw that story.
Now, if that's the case, there's still 4,800 mothers and fathers, angel mothers and fathers who had their loved ones murdered by an illegal alien. What is being done about that? And not even counting Kate Steinle and Molly Tibbetts. And if you notice, the Molly Tibbetts case was supposed to come up to trial this month, but they're keeping it out of the media. Have you heard about that?
I've heard about that.
So, yeah, they're supposed to bringing that case up, but for some reason it's not going on in other news networks. Not even Fox is talking about it, which is kind of strange, about this Tibbetts case, where she was stabbed, I think, 15 times, left in a cornfield.
Yeah.
And the guy's saying now he's saying that he wasn't read as Amanda Wright or whatever because he didn't speak English or something. I mean, Michael, it's off the chain what's going on with these Democrats. I mean, absurdity. And if you notice, they keep talking about Trump. And one thing I'm going to let you go in a minute. I know you got other callers. What about the story, Michael, that you were one reporting on it when Dianne Feinstein supposedly had a Chinese spy working in her administration? How come she wasn't brought up on the pro quo?
Well, it's a mystery. Yeah, I mean, yes, she should have been because she willingly had this Chinese spy working in her office.
Absolutely, and you don't hear the media shut that up because it's a Democrat. I mean, I'm going to tell you this: that Tulsi Gabbard did American public a favor by getting rid of that Kamala Harris. I will give Tulsi some credit for that. She did great exposing that Kamala, that lizard, whatever you want to call her. But and another thing, Michael, there's one more story I'm going to let you hit on. I'm going to hit on, and I'm going to let you go. Michael, did you see on Drudge Report, and it was actually on Drudge and Breitbart, it was 3 days ago, they're talking that the NFL is turning out to be like the the WWF, the World Wrestling Federation. Have you heard about that? Where
I've heard about that.
They were talking about it. Yeah, they're talking about the NFL games are fixed. They already know what team's going to win, and they already have they already know what team's going to win the Super Bowl. And when I saw that report, as soon as I saw that, Michael, I was thinking about what you said one day, and I was thinking, man, I remember Michael brought up the show X-Files, and I saw that with the the Smoking Man. Remember on the X-Files?
Yeah, I remember the Smoking Man.
Yeah, the Smoking Man said that all the football games and the games are all fixed. I'll never forget that one episode with Scully and what was the other guy? Scully and Louder or whatever. Mulder. And Mulder. And the Smoky Man saying, Buffalo will never win the Super Bowl because we got all the games fixed. I'll never forget that episode. And matter of fact, Breitbart, I think it was Breitbart, or one of them, said that now people are calling in saying that these games look too fixed now with the refs and how the players won't get hurt. I mean, it really, and I watched a couple games, and I only watched it for a few minutes, Michael, and I was like, wow, these games really do look fixed. So I don't know what to say about the NFL, Ben, but if they're reporting some of these networks, it's like the
there's
WWF.
Nothing new about that. Remember the story of the Black Sox?
Yes, sir. I sure do. Chicago.
Yeah.
Julius Joe Jackson, right? Yep. Yeah, they used to teach that in school. When you were in elementary school, they used to tell you that story about they used to read it. The teacher would have to read a book to all the kids about Julius Joe Jackson. Yes, I remember that. I was taught that as a kid about that story. But I just don't know, Michael. Everything looks so rigged. I don't know what to say. Tomorrow they're having a major thing on history about the Vikings, and to see what's going on in those Nordic countries like Denmark and Sweden and Norway, and they're even Ireland and England. Those are Nordic countries. Those are Viking conquered countries too. I don't know if you know that. Scotland.
Yes.
Those are all Vikings. And now they're all turning out to be a bunch of cream puffs. I tell you, it's really amazing to me, really. And, Michael, it's like we talk about with Texas and Florida. Of course the Democrats are going to try to do everything they can to bring all these people from those New England states into these states to take over to turn them blue. And until I see these Republicans really get strong about these New Jerseyans and New Yorkers, they should not even be allowed to move unless they tell what their politic is going to be. Because you bring in all these millions of New Yorkers and New Jerseyans to the deep South, they're going to turn those states to blue. And it should be allowed.
I know they're aiming at Texas right now. They're absolutely aiming at Texas. Anyway, Tom, we're going to let you go here. And thank you for the phone call. And we're going to switch over to Robert in California. Aloha, Robert. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, not a whole lot, Mike, but some pertinent stuff. I hope you guys enjoyed your Thanksgiving weekend, you and Claire.
We did.
Oh, good, good. As far as I know, you don't have any snow over there yet.
Not yet, but they're expecting it a week from today.
Yeah, that lack of snow really surprises me. I've been looking at the forecast here in our country. This is not good. So I was just listening the conversation between you and your last caller there, Tom in Florida.
Yes.
Overall, he's a great caller. I really appreciate a lot of things he has to say. Hey, Tom in Florida, just in case you're listening, I've got a YouTube channel. It's called A Voice in the Dark. Maybe you should listen to it. We have a lot in common. We should talk. But in the meantime, I was listening to a couple of... I'm sorry. God, I just got a frog in my throat. Give me a second. I was listening to a couple of the callers before Tom, and a couple of things really kind of came to mind with me. This whole impeachment process with the president. Can I get your personal opinion on that? As for where we're at right now in the process?
Well, according to the report that we got this morning, Horowitz is basically going to wrist slap everybody, and that will be the end of the Russiagate investigation. But at this point, I would say that, Schiff is bound for impeachment. Pelosi's bound for impeachment. And I think if it happens, we may see violence in the streets.
Well, can I ask your opinion about the conflict that may be occurring between John Brennan and James Comey? I think they're about to throw each other under the bus. The good news for us is the bus has got a lot of wheels. We've got room for both. But
yes.
I want to hear your opinion on that.
No, I think we're starting to see a lot of, shall we say, internecine rivalries, where people are basically concerned, and the swamp is starting to tremble.
I'm so proud of you for calling it that. I was going to call it pissing contest. You're definitely the much more responsible person here.
Okay. Anything else?
Sorry, I'm just calling like that. No, brother. You have a great day. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. I'm in the end, you and we agree on so much. You might not believe in God, and I totally do. We both believe in the same level of politics, and I respect you. So I'm really glad that you're here, and I hope RBN is able to keep its funding so you can continue broadcasting. Oh, on that note, sorry. If Republic Broadcasting goes down, have you come up with any alternatives to make sure that you can still broadcast to us? Because a lot of us have a lot of respect for what you have to say.
There's an alternative for me to work with, and I don't want to get into too much details, but there'd be a plan B.
Good. Yeah, no, there's no reason for you to go into it on air because we don't want our enemies to be able to identify our trajectory, but I'm glad you have a plan B in mind. And I really hope John has, Mr. Statmiller himself has a plan B in mind because this is not really going good for us lately. I hope that we're able to achieve some kind of difference here really soon, us conservatives and constitutionalists and, what I guess Ron Paul would call them, libertarians. Those of us who believe in moral value, we're about to lose our platform. And December 10th
is unfortunately,
big.
As I mentioned before, Ryan Dawson has had the plug pulled on him from AdSense and PayPal and Twitter. So yeah, we're in a situation right now where we are being censored, and it's a little frustrating.
Well, anyone who actually has listened to Mr. Dawson and what he has to say realizes just what we're risking right here. We're risking reality. They want to censor reality for the sake of whatever they're thinking of. And this is kind of getting sick. It's kind of scaring me a whole lot. But if I could, one more time, Mike, if you don't mind, can I just kind of shout out my YouTube channel just in case any one of my 8 subscribers or my 52 viewers might want to know about me?
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
Okay. My YouTube channel is A Voice in the Dark. The reason I put it that way is because when you go to that channel, you're going to see nothing but a black screen and a voice.
Okay.
God bless anonymity. Yeah, totally for anonymity's sake. But I do have a few good things to say there. Most of it's opinionated. Some of it is very well researched and fact-based and backed up. But I'm trying to lead everybody in softly. I've only got 6 videos up so far. I just started about a month ago, but we're going to see how it goes. I'm hoping to get some subscribers, and I'm hoping to be able to survive the December 10th, whatever they call it, the event horizon, maybe? Maybe that's a good term for it. Yeah.
I think that's a very good term for it.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It's like the Rubicon as far as I'm concerned. I'm probably on the wrong side of the Rubicon. But hey, in the meantime, Mike, I really do appreciate your time. I really do appreciate your research. Your radio show rocks. I listen to you every day. And I really hope you're able to keep going. And in the meantime, till we meet again, I wish you the best of luck. Hello, all the listeners. I love you guys. You support this network. You rock. And with that, I'm out.
Okay, well, thank you very much, and we're going to do a shout-out to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining our network. And we're coming up on a commercial break. We've got a caller waiting on the line, and I'm going to wait until that caller... I'm going to wait until the end of the commercial break, and then we'll deal with that caller. So stay tuned, and... we're just going to keep on going for as long as we can. We'll be right back. Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go to the phones to Dan in Washington State. Aloha, Dan. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, thanks for taking the call. Just want to respond to the caller from Florida, and I totally agree with what he's saying. That the Democrats have plotted to make whites a minority to turn certain states, different ethnic groups to get Democrat voters. But my thing is, I guess I'm more at peace with it now. Tom sounds pretty, he feels like if he just votes Republican one more time, then that's going to stop. But, the Republican Party, Trump was about the only populist. I think he had a populist message and people voted for it. It was nationalist, secure borders, bring jobs back. And it was pro-working man, but the Republican Party is not like that, So you could see what they did the first 2 years. All they did was a corporate tax cut, so I guess I can't vote Democrat, but I guess I'm past the point of thinking that the Republicans are going to save me. That's for sure, and I've been in California a lot and Texas a lot, and there's just as many homeless people and crap in places like Houston than San Francisco. So I don't know. I guess the fear of that blue thing. I guess they've already won. It's like Ann Coulter's book, Adios America. It's kind of already happened. I think it's past the point of trying to stop that. Because at the end, you always get stabbed in the back by a Republican, really.
Yes.
They pretend You know what I'm saying? Like Paul Ryan.
Well, you get stabbed in the back by all politicians. And don't forget the story that we had out there earlier, that the way they're going to deal with the homeless crisis in California is they're literally going to confiscate assets and say, you can't take care of yourself, we'll take care of you for you.
Yeah, but you know, at least, I don't know. I mean, but I lived in Austin, Texas for a while, and you'd have all these kind of yuppies and like literally walking over the bodies of, I remember one day there was a homeless guy. I thought he might have been dead. And I went and told the store owner, just in the middle of the sidewalk, and all these party people, and people are out in trendy Austin, you know, I mean, there was homeless people on every corner there. You know, you go to places like Houston, it's just filthy and like a third world area, more even than LA sometimes. So, you know, and the wages of those Republican states are pretty low too. So, like, I mean, Texas has a big government. They just prefer putting people in jail than helping people, I guess. You know, which California does too. But
yeah,
they're both worthless, I guess, is my point. I guess.
Well,
I personally. Go ahead.
You're right about that. And, I mean, we're seeing this growing tendency to basically ignore the homeless and hungry and, you know, take the attitude of, well, who cares about them?
Yeah, and just let them die, you know, that's no one really cares. It's pretty sad. I see it everywhere I go. I mean, it's just, but it's everywhere. It's not just, you know, Democrat states or whatever. It's definitely, and you know, if like say minimum wage, I think it should have at least been adjusted for inflation, you know, so I'm Democrat on that issue because I think if you work, you should get paid a little bit, at least enough to get a little apartment or something. So I guess call me socialist there, but then these Republicans want to get rid of all that and then pretend like they're good at getting rid of stuff that helps people, but in the end, they're never going to stop the immigration, as we've seen with the corporate tax cut, and they did not do anything on immigration because they had the House, the Senate, and Trump for 2 years, and they literally did nothing except that corporate tax cut. And they couldn't even repeal Obamacare after.
Yeah, that's
trying to.
That's one of the frustrating things. You know, is that?
Yeah, I mean, they voted.
Trump had the House and Senate, and couldn't do anything.
Yeah, and then it makes them look like fools because they voted like I don't know how many. 20 times to get rid of Obamacare when Obama was in there. And then Trump was up there saying, okay, let's get rid of it. And nothing. I mean, they're just, you know, I might vote for Trump again, but he's, you know, I like Rand Paul. There's a few good politicians, you know, I like Jim Traficant or, you know, some of these other people.
The only way I would vote for Trump again is if Hillary ran, and she's refusing to say if she's going to run or not. All right, well, listen, thank you for the phone call, Dan. We got to let you go, and we'll be right back. Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to take a phone call from David in California. Aloha, David. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, hi, Mike. I had two things, but I forgot. Anyways, I had to call back, but I forgot one of them. But when you guys were talking about Sweden, there was a woman, I think she was from a newspaper or some kind of conservative group or something, but a Swedish woman. And she revealed who does run most of the, like maybe 90 or 95% of the papers there. And it was similar to what's going around the world. So, and she, of course, she had to step down because that was truth equals sometimes anti-Semitism in certain circles. So she just said who was running the papers, and that's all. She didn't say anything anti-Semitic. And she got fired. So I forgot her name. The way to Google it is just journalists or whatever reveals Zionists running newspapers in Sweden, something like that. So that's about all I had. I had something else, but I forgot what it was.
Okay, well, maybe it'll come back to you here. Thank you for the phone call. We're going to switch over to Peter in Los Angeles. Aloha, Peter. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Mike, I was driving down Cahuenga Boulevard today in Los Angeles, Hollywood, right across, within a quarter mile, under a bridge from under the 101 from Hollywood Bowl, to let you know where that's at. And there's barely any underpass here that there hasn't been a homeless encampment spring up. And today, for the first time, and they're filthy, Mike. They've got trash and scum and all the stuff that you see and hear about in San Francisco is going on here, too. But today I saw one. There was a big trash garbage truck collection truck there. They had blocked off 2 lanes of the 3-lane street, 3-lane on each side. And there were about, 10 cops there, and they were rousting all the homeless. They were throwing all that junk that they have in their, shopping carts and all that other stuff, and rousting them all. And, to be honest with you, I was happy to see it. They're everywhere. They're everywhere. I just spent 6 figures on a house a year and a half ago, and there's homeless encampments quarter of a mile away from there, and it's just it's ridiculous. More and more coming in, and more being displaced by the illegals. More and more taxpayers leaving. Property values going down. This place is doomed. It's utterly doomed.
Yep.
And but I was actually glad to see it. I just don't want them. There's got to be a way. Make a tent city. There's got to be enough. Government's got to. We've been in enough wars. There's enough canvas for everybody, probably. Make a tent city somewhere. Put these people in it. Dig a couple of latrines, and you know what? Put a couple of showers in, and they can stay under tent. But I'm tired of seeing it.
Well, the reason you're seeing it is because all of the money in this country is being spent on the wars, Israel, and Wall Street, and there's nothing left over. And as I mentioned earlier in the show, 60% of the jobs created since 1990 are low-income jobs, low-wage jobs. And, it's hideously out of balance, the whole system. And I'm not happy to see homeless people. I think everybody should have a home. And, but obviously somebody's got different ideas.
Well, you know what I'd like to see, Mike? I'd like to see, for one thing, the root of all this problem was we got a bunch of people who can print money out of nothing and can't be audited. Money out of nothing and cannot be audited. And they get their way everywhere in the world. And I would like to just reverse all that stuff. I wish the homeless people would find their houses and go there and say, look, a home without people for people without a home, and move in and displace them. See what they say.
That would be a very, very nice thing, because it really is completely out of control. And again, you had that law that they've passed in California where they'll simply take your money and say you're not capable of being self-sufficient. And of course not. That's the whole point of homelessness, is you're not self-sufficient. And so they're just going to grab your assets and conserve you, which I'm not even sure what that means.
What assets? I mean, what do these guys have? Their shopping carts, a poncho?
Yeah.
They have no assets. They created the problem with the influx of all the stuff, with all the wars, and now they are, and these people have nowhere to go, Mike. That's the shame of it. Nobody will take them. There's big areas of LA that and nobody will allow them. I wish, frankly, they wouldn't be allowed in my area, but I wish there was an area where they were allowed, and that the city, which of course is a sanctuary city, and a lot of these people are Mexican too. The city would look after them, but it ain't going to happen.
No, it isn't going to happen, and you're right. A big part of the problem is the sanctuary city situation, because it's just making the circumstances of the homeless people that much more dire. And you think that they'd want to take care of the legal American citizens, but it isn't happening. The Democrats are bringing in the illegal immigrants and the refugees so that they can vote blue.
And Mike, where it's depressing my properties, and I have a nice house.
Yeah.
Depressing the price of my property. What it's not, it's what it's raising at the low end, with all the illegals and all these people who can barely afford a shelter, struggling for the slumlords and all that. They're able to maintain their rents and their property because there's an endless supply of absolute low end dregs for the slumlords. So their property maintains while ours drops.
Yes.
So, it's nuts. It's nuts. I don't know. It's Mike. This place, we are totally controlled. Tom from Florida was right about, look at the people that are operating this thing against Trump. Look who they are. Look at their names. Look at the heads of the Democratic Party. Look at the biggest donors in both parties. All the biggest donors. Look who you can't criticize. Look who can print money and not be audited. Look who you can't even discuss the Holocaust about in 16 countries. What does it all add up to? What does it all add up to? Who do we point the finger at for where this country's going? Seems really clear to me.
Yes, it's clear to me too.
Phil Giraldi had a good article today. I sent it to you like 4 times you might want to take a look at, but I don't think you ran it as far as I know, but it's really a good one, and it talks about people used to talk about the international Zionist, they didn't call it that, international Zionist conspiracy, and it was like, oh my God, how anti-Semitic. People would laugh at you. Nobody who knows anything would laugh at that anymore. Like that Barbara Specter in Sweden, or, what's going on in France, or in Germany, or anywhere. The European Union, here. Even, I love India, wants to go with the Israeli model, to apartheid the Kashmiris. It's really unbelievable.
Yeah.
Mike, I got to sign off here. I'm pulling in somewhere, and I've got to talk to somebody here.
All right. Well, listen. Good luck, and thank you for the phone call. Yeah, I mean, Claire and I lived in LA for a while, and it seemed like it was a really nice place, and it began to deteriorate. And a big part of it, we lived up in North Hollywood, near Lancashire. and they were putting in that new rail line. And when we and we started seeing the homeless come in. Okay, let's few more things going here. Let's see. I ditched Google for DuckDuckGo, while you should too. And I'm in agreement. You don't need Google. In fact, Google has become virtually useless simply by the fact of its censorship. Okay, is Joe Kernan the most irritating and misinformed anchor on CNBC? I would say so. Now, here's a little bit of interesting news. Speaking of Google, Google founders Larry Page and Sergey Brin are stepping down as CEO and president. Yes, they got kind of burned out here. Silicon Valley giants accused of avoiding over $100 billion in taxes over the last decade. All right, so let's talk a little bit about this this David Icke on Alex Jones. What's the big takeaway from David's 2-hour co-host on AJ today, and I don't know why Mark didn't bring it up, was that David said he'd been saying for decades, no human is in control of the planet, and a non-human is. Not the Clintons, the Rothschilds, and AJ's been mentioning this now and again for years, but mainly because he's heard it from Icke years ago. AJ was just cautious all these years for being seen as a kook, but today's show, AJ did agree with Icke in that respect. The gist of the agenda, according to Icke, is to dehumanize the planet. And the reason David has not been on Alex Jones in 2 years is because Alex Jones was busy going to bat for Donald Trump. David already resigned to the situation. AJ wanted to give Donald Trump a chance to turn things around. AJ said at the top of the show that David Icke was mad at him for being a DT fanboy and refused to appear on Alex Jones. So there we are. Okay, a grand jury has indicted Democratic donor Ed Buck on drug trafficking offenses, including giving methamphetamine to 2 victims who suffered fatal overdoses. Just have to wonder about these people here. All right, we're going to take a phone call now. Anthony in California, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. How have you been?
Busy.
Oh, you know, it's been some time since I talked to you, and I wanted to come on air and talk to you about the Windows operating system you talked about a few years back. You were saying that it had backdoor programs.
Yeah, but at this point, pretty much all electronics have got backdoors in them.
Yeah, I just want to say to your listeners on air, be careful of the Windows 10 operating system, because I saw for myself a Windows app, and I have an Alienware computer, and I had a tech look at it, and he opened up the files, all my files that he can look at in a certain mode, you know, and he was online helping me, and we saw the file, the Windows app. It can't be deleted. It cannot be viewed. It's protected. And what they said that is part of the operating system. And so I just thought I'd bring this to your attention and to the listeners that be careful of Windows 10, you know. And I'm thinking, Mike, you know, what should I do? Should I, because back then you said that the Linux and the GNU operating system have no backdoor programs.
Well, we can't really be sure about that. And I remember there was a Linux conference not too long ago where the father of one of the Linux cuts was asked, is there a back door? And he shook his head. He said, no, there isn't. At the same time, he was nodding his head up and down. It's all full of spyware. It's all full of spyware.
Mike,
I mean,
I know.
The Ring.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, you've got the Ring. You've got all these smart voice assistants, and they're all basically designed to peak. In fact, there was security experts were saying you need to be careful about your smart TVs, and that you might want to just put a piece of tape over the cameras.
Wow. Yeah, I put a piece of tape over my camera on my Alienware computer, my laptop, and so.
Okay, well, Anthony, thanks an awful lot for the phone call. We're going to let you go. We're going to be back with the last segment of our program after these few words. Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. We're going to take a phone call now from Sebastian in Sweden. Aloha, Sebastian. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, I would just want to comment what Tom from Florida said, and in a way he's right. But you have to go back in the history. It's the ruling party now that's together with two other parties, that Social Democrats, and I think it's their fault. They were in political power from 1936 to 1976. And that's almost like two generations. So you get these people that depended more on the state than themselves. And it's got a little to do with that and the fact that, I don't know. It's just, I think it's because of the Social Democrats. And then back in the 70s, they had a meeting with two or three, what do they call them, high up in the Muslim world, imams or whatever, I forgot. And they decided that they were going to support the Social Democrats if they could become party members. So now there are some party members that are Muslim that are in the Social Democratic Party, and the Social Democratic Youth Organization, which most parties have in Sweden, like the Young Republicans, the Young Democrats, and so they've infiltrated now in the Social Democratic Party, and that's partially a fact. And also, I think that the women's rights groups have really deteriorated since this immigration. They don't want to. They will not come out and say that it's the immigrants. They say, "Oh, all men rape," but you never see like 10 Swedes, rape, beating up a woman, and it's unheard of.
Yeah.
So it's like it's partially the mentality, the fact that they have been indoctrinated actually to live with this, and we have to take it in open arms, and poor immigrants and all this. And there are cases when people become Vikings, and like there was a girl that was raped, 10-year-old, and her uncle was in a motorcycle gang, and they found the guy and they just beat him to a pulp. But things like that, it's not, it's far and few between, but it does happen. But I think the Vikings are more in Denmark and Norway now, because the Norwegian, I can't think of it, what do you call it in English? The minister for high courts came out and said that we have freedom of expression and freedom of speech in this country. He defended a guy that started a new party in Norway that burned the Quran, and so he came out and defended that in Norway. But I don't think it would ever happen in Sweden. I think you would be put in jail for that. Yeah,
I can imagine you would be.
That's all I have to say. But I agree with Tom in some ways, but it's a matter of indoctrination. It's the people that's been indoctrinated here so long.
All right.
Okay,
well, listen.
Thank you very much, Mike.
Sebastian, I got to let you go. It's there's the music. It's time to end the show. Please stay tuned for. Well, I believe Steve Elkins is running John's microphone today, so stay tuned for him. And again, please support What Really Happened. Please support RBN, and we'll be back tomorrow. Aloha, America.